Hi guys, it's Amber, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome to the Madhouse. If you're not new here, then thank you so much for coming back. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you are sat here and watching me and that I'm not talking to myself. You really have no idea. I know I say it every week, but this week I promise I'm not going to keep you for the best part of 45 minutes. I am going to try and keep it a bit shorter than usual, but as you all know, I can talk for absolute England. This is week 5 of 18, so I'm not going to try and remember every single episode that I've done. I know there's only 4, but I do not have the best memory when I'm on the spot. This week we are covering the feelings that surround fertility struggles. So one thing I hear an awful lot of is that people feel all these different emotions that people shouldn't be feeling. I think there's certain things that you should feel and are normal to feel, and then there's other things that we all feel that I personally think is rubbish and that we shouldn't have to feel, and I just think now is a time to talk about it. So that's what I'm going to do. I had a message the other day from somebody who I used to know a while ago saying that she felt so bad that we all felt these things such as shame over this, and people can't quite imagine what it's like to feel this. So I figured that today we would kind of sit and we would just talk about all the feelings that come with fertility struggles, because it all affects you, and I think it's a really important topic. So week 5, fertility struggles and the feelings that you get surrounding it. So grab yourself a cup of tea, sit down, get yourself all comfy, and let's talk all things vagina. That's such a weird tagline, isn't it? Let's talk all things vagina. All right, as you were, grab your cup of tea. Hi guys, welcome back. Okay, so I needed a good cuppa. I asked on my Instagram the other day how fertility struggles make you feel, and this Q&A seemed to be one that I received more responses than I think I've ever received before, which kind of goes to show, if you ask me, how pressing this issue is and how many people feel certain ways and don't necessarily talk about it. So today I'm going to go through them and just talk about them. I do feel bad because I know that sometimes you sit and watch these videos and I do talk about myself and my experiences of it. However, as I said last week, I'm not a medical professional in any way, shape or form. So all I have to go on is my own experience, and it's not been the most pleasant, but I know that for other people it's been different, and I know that people have been in worse situations than me, people have been arguably in better situations than me. But the feelings that we all seem to get surrounding it seem to be the same, or very similar at most, at least even. So that's kind of where I'm going with this. So I'm sorry if I keep kind of going back to my phone, but I want to cover as much as possible and as much. There are a few that are kind of quite similar, so I am going to kind of put them all down. I'm not going to sit here and try and give you advice on these feelings, because to be honest, I think there's a lot of the feelings that were mentioned that I feel myself, and I am not at a point in my journey where I can say, right, I'm over this feeling and give you advice on how to do that. I can't do that with some of them. So this isn't going to be sitting here and giving you advice. This is just kind of going to be talking about that feeling. And like I said, if I think, all things considered, I am quite positive when it comes to this situation. However, I am also human, and I don't sit here every day bouncing off the walls. I don't sit here every day feeling really positive. I think more often than not I feel positive. However, I do have days where I sit here and just cry. and I think the last couple of weeks I've had more of them than I have in a while. So this is literally just going to be talking about those feelings. So I'm sorry if you've come here looking for advice. I will try my best to kind of guide, but like I say, some of these feelings I still feel every day. So that's what this is. This is just talking about it, as I think it really is so important. Some of them I have kind of condensed into one, but we'll just crack on, and I hope that you can gain something out of this, even if that is just feeling less alone and feeling like you're not the only person that feels this way. So without further ado, we'll crack on. The first one that I want to address is feeling like a failure. You do feel like a failure. I think it's so hard to feel like you're succeeding when arguably the one thing that your body is supposed to do isn't doing it. It's just not happening, and I think that's really natural. You're not a failure. I think that's one thing that I have accepted. I have accepted that I'm not a failure, even if some days I do feel that way. You always imagine that you're going to grow up, you're going to get married, you're going to have children, or whatever order you want to do it in, whatever. But you always grow up and expect to be able to just have children, and you think, you know, you'll start trying and then it will happen really quickly, and it seems to happen really quickly for everybody else, and then there's you. And again, because nobody talks about it, you don't hear all these stories, and you don't hear how many people go through this. And you know, if you think 1 in 6 people struggle to get pregnant, say you live on a street with 60 houses, that's 10 couples, that's 10 houses that are in this position, but you don't ever look at it like that. So I suppose when it's not happening for you, you do feel like a failure, because you feel like this should be happening for me. Why is it not happening for me? Why is it happening for everybody else, but why am I not doing it? You know, you sit in a school exam and everybody else passes a test and you fail. Everybody else passes that test first time, you fail. You feel like a failure, and your body is failing. It is failing to get pregnant, but that doesn't mean that you are a failure. And that is something that I am really trying to kind of keep in my mind and remember, because it's horrible, and it is such a horrible feeling, you know. Just think of a time when you've not been able to do something, like, you know, I know it's completely worlds apart, but think about when you pass your driving test, and if you've ever failed your driving test, or you've ever failed any kind of test, or failed anything, or not been able to do anything, you know, even if being a kid, you can't do the monkey bars, but everybody can. That's how it feels, but so much deeper, because this isn't a skill that you're not able to do. It's not like, oh, I can't do the monkey bars, but I can swing really high on the swing. It's not something like that. It's not, you know, I'm not very good at maths, but I'm really good at science. It's not something like that. Like, it's just, it's your body. It's not something that you can replace. So it is completely understandable that people feel like that, but it's really sad, because we aren't failing. Like, who are we failing? It's easy to feel like you're failing yourself and you're failing everybody else, but I don't think you are. And it's just, it really is the worst feeling, because you sit there and you ponder on it. Ponder. You sit there and you dwell on it, and you just feel like a massive failure. And I completely understand that. It really is a horrible feeling. I do think it's really important that you actually acknowledge your feelings. Like, I think this is why I'm doing this, because it's so easy to try and just pretend that you don't feel like this and try and kind of get past it. But if you just put everything to the back of your mind and you don't actually acknowledge anything, you're never going to get over it. And so I think that is kind of what this video is about. It's about acknowledging these feelings, and just, like I said, it's not an advice. I'm not inviting you here to come and get the answers to all your problems. I'm inviting you here just for you to hear that other people feel this way, and that is literally it. So I am going to do videos in the upcoming weeks of dealing with jealousy, and then another one on just coping. So these will all be addressed, and that is where I will kind of come to you with a bit more advice of not how to get rid of these feelings, because like I say, I think it's really important that you embrace these feelings and you accept them, but kind of coping with that and not letting it rule your life, that is something that I am going to do, but I'm going to do that in a totally separate video. I've got 18 weeks to fill. The next one is anger. Anger, I think, is a really common feeling. Like, I was so angry, and I think it's really hard not to be, because I think you're getting frustrated, and frustration quite often turns to anger in any situation, but you don't know who to be angry at, so you're just angry. You don't want to be angry at yourself because you know it's not your fault, but you just feel angry. And I think that's it. I think it's a frustration because you sit here and you just think, why can't I do this? Why can everybody else do this and I can't? Again, it follows on from that failure, and you become so frustrated. And I think this happens quite early on. I think maybe 6-7 months after you've started trying, and you start thinking, why the hell is this not happening? And then you become more and more frustrated, and as a result you get angrier and angrier and angrier, and you eventually, I think it just turns to bitterness. Like, from my experience, I think I was so bitter and so angry at everyone, and you don't know what to do with it. It just festers, because you can't take it out on everybody else, because it isn't everybody else's fault, but you have all these feelings of anger inside of you, and it's impossible, I think, not to feel angry. Again, going back to failure, you fail something, you feel angry that you've not put enough effort in, but in this situation it's not that you've not put enough effort in. Like, you literally can't put any more effort in than you are. You can have sex and that's the end of it. You can do every trick in the bloody book, but you can't... It is just so frustrating. The anger is so normal. Like, I would go mental over the smallest little things because I was just angry and angry at the world. And I think still sometimes I get that. I sit there and you see my favourite line, sorry, Smackhead Sandra with 8 kids, 8 different dads, doesn't care, they're all in care, they're all under social services, and she's off shooting up every weekend. And I know that that's a very media family, and that is a family that realistically they're not that common as much as we like to think they are. But things like that anger me, and when I hear about these children who aren't in loving homes and this, that and the other, and parents who just take advantage of how lucky they are, and I see people moaning about their children, like, you know, I get they're human and I get they're normal, and I'm now at a point, I think, where I don't get as wound up by that, because I'm sure that when it happens for us, I will be the same. You know, if my kid has had 5 explosive poos in a day, or I've not had any sleep for 3 weeks, I am going to rant about it, and they shouldn't not be able to rant about it. But those feelings of frustration turn into anger, and it's so hard. And I get that, because you don't know where to project it. Like, anything pregnancy related, you literally want to put your head through a wall. And I get that, because you're surrounded by it. You can't go out without walking past somebody with children and walking past a pregnant woman. And I mean, what are they supposed to do? Stay inside? Like, they can't, it's not, you can't expect everybody to pander to you. And that is, I think, one of the worst feelings, because you are just so angry and you don't know what to do with it. And I think when you're stressed, you gain almost like a mind fog, and your brain just goes literally, and so when you just have all these feelings of anger, it's so hard, because they manifest, and if you manifest anger inside of you, it comes out, and you become not a very nice person. And that's it. Like, you have to find a way to deal with that anger, because you turn into a bit of a monster, or I did anyway. And I don't know, I think anger is definitely the worst feeling, because you just don't know what to do with it. Yeah, I was really angry for a long time. I think I still am a bit. Like, I just get angry. I get angry, I sit there and I think, why the hell me? Like, why me? Why is it my body that's choosing not to work? And that really does make me so mad. So you're absolutely not alone on that one. Really, really not alone. Like, I could guarantee, you know, you speak to any woman who has struggled to get pregnant, and I can guarantee you that anger is really high up on their list of feelings. I can promise you that. It's awful, 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 horrible feeling to have. Just anger. It's a horrible word as well, isn't it? But being angry at yourself is worse, like literally the worst. I think feeling angry at yourself and feeling disappointed in yourself, I do think they're just horrible feelings, and it's, you know, how do you get rid of that? How do you get rid of that self-loathing? On top of that, you have about 5,000 people that have opinions. Like, it doesn't matter who you're talking to about it. You could be talking to a parent, a colleague, an uncle, whoever. You talk to anybody about your fertility issues, and they have an opinion. They have an opinion of how you should be trying and what you should be doing, what you should be eating, what you shouldn't be doing. And that, I think, is also really hard. And that is something where you again get really angry, because you start getting angry at other people, and all they're doing is trying to help. I said before in a previous video, like, people's reactions are to fix things. And so when you tell them something and they're saying, oh, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried this? Because they just want to fix it. But that for you, again, just manifests, and it just, oh my God, your brain just feels like it's going to burst. It really, really does. And it's just, it's horrible. Such an awful feeling, like being angry. Like, when you're angry at someone, when someone winds you up that much that you feel like you're going to blow, feeling like that all the time, you literally feel like you're going to go into self-destruct mode, don't you? It really is just horrific. This one struck me a little bit. One person actually said, well, quite a few people said guilty. So I'll cover that first. But guilty, I think, is a massive one, because whether it's male factor or female factor, most of the time it's one of you in the relationship that's the problem, if you like. I hate that word, problem. But most of the time it is one of you. And I know that I felt really guilty for my husband, because I thought, what if it never works and you never have children because of me? And my parents and his parents, and you feel like everything is riding on you being able to give them a child, and you can't do that, and you know how much they want it. And so it is, guilt is massive. I've never spoken to anyone who has struggled to get pregnant or has had to go through IVF and before it has worked has not said that they don't feel guilty. I think it is such a common feeling. But then at the same time, I think that issue is their issue. Like, you shouldn't, if you didn't want children, would you feel guilty? No. But because you do, you then feel guilty for not giving them it. And I don't know, it's just, it really is so hard. Like, I sit there sometimes and I talk to family members, and I'll talk to my husband, and I'll talk to, like, his parents, for example, who I know so want to be grandparents, and you talk about it and you know how much they want it, and you know that it's your fault they've not got it, and that for me makes me feel awful. Like, I always think, oh my God, he could have married anybody, he could have picked anybody, and anybody else would have been able to give him children, but he didn't, he picked me. And that makes me feel awful. Like, I think when we first found out, I wished I knew before we got married, because I'd have completely understood if he had chosen to leave me for somebody who could give him that. And I know he'd have never done it off his own back. He'd have never done that. He'd have never left me. But that's how I felt. And I felt guilty that he'd married me. I felt like he shouldn't be with me. So guilt is a really hard one. But another thing, so the person that said guilt predominantly with a reason was guilt because I already have a son. And I think it's very easy for people like me who haven't got any children to sit there and think, well, you've already got one, and not understand that. But I do, secondary infertility is a real thing, and I think one of my biggest worries with this, I actually sat down and had this conversation with Marco the other day, was if like, infertility never leaves you, and I think whether you struggled with your first or not, when you've had that second child and that first child, whether that be through IVF or naturally, and then secondary infertility kicks in and you are struggling to fall pregnant with your second child, or you can't fall pregnant with your second child, it's no lesser than the feelings that you get if it's your first child that you're struggling to have. Because I sat and said to Marco, I will be over the moon if and when we have a child. However, I am already dreading the day that that child grows up and asks for a brother or sister already, and taking them to birthday parties and then being the only one there that doesn't have a sibling, and cool. Already that's a worry I have. It's already a worry of how I'm going to have that conversation, of how I'm going to feel when I'm so desperate for a second child. And those people have just as much right to feel the way that we do, and you shouldn't feel guilty for feeling that way. Like, this is the only bit of advice really I can give, or sorry, I've got a really itchy nose. The only bit of advice that I think I can give, I'm not in that situation at all, but you should never feel guilty because you already have a child. It's irrelevant. It is absolutely irrelevant. You want a child. Yes, you've got one, but that doesn't take it away. That doesn't make the feeling any less. You've got that child and you're grateful for that child, but the want for another, it's just the same. It really is just the same. And at the end of the day, we're all in it together. But the guilt's horrific. Like, you just, oh man. You just feel so guilty that you just can't give to other people. So you almost feel like you're not just going through it for yourself, but you're going through it for other people. And that's the worst thing. Like, that's our thing with, like, paying for the IVF as well, because I think a lot of people have said to me, like, oh, why don't you set up a Just Giving page and things like that. And I know that people would donate, and if I'm honest, I think we'd get all the money, because I just know there are that many people that would donate. But for me, if it didn't work, my God, the guilt I'd feel then. Like, I feel guilty enough about it now without them feeling guilt to all these people that have donated. It's such a catch-22. It really is. I feel like I'm in a support group with myself right now. Another one is inadequate. So that came through a few times, and I think again that links to the failure that you just feel inadequate, like you don't feel good enough. I know that in my situation I kind of felt like I wasn't good enough, my body wasn't good enough to have a child, and therefore I wasn't good enough to have a child. And you almost feel like to me, I'm like, what did I do to deserve this? I must have done something really bad in a past life. But you question everything, and you just constantly feel like you're not good enough. I always believed that everything happens for a reason. Always believed that, and now I try and believe it, but then I think, well, what the hell is the reason for this? Like, is it supposed to make me stronger? Because I feel like it's broken me. And there are people where I just think, like, genuinely good people that go through this, and for what? Like, why them? Why is it the good people that have to go through this? Like, what is it that, are we supposed to learn something from this? Like, why are we not good enough to go straight away? And I think it's such a hard situation, but you definitely feel feelings of inadequacy, and you just constantly feel like you're not good enough for anything. Like, I felt like I wasn't good enough to have a child, I wasn't good enough to carry it naturally, so therefore was I not good enough? Was I not good enough for my genes to be passed on to another child? Did some higher being decide that I wasn't a good enough person and therefore my child would not be a good person either? You know, was I not good enough to my husband? You know, and then because I couldn't give him a child, I felt like I wasn't good enough for him, I wasn't good enough for his family. And you just feel inadequate constantly, because you just feel like one thing that you really should be able to do, you can't do. And if you can't do that, then you're not good enough. And it's a horrible feeling, that. They're all horrible feelings. I don't think there's a single thing I'm going to come through and go, this is a nice feeling to have, because it's not. None of it. It's making me a bit sad, this. Like I said, like, you know, this isn't a how to cope with it. This is just a talk about it. Talk about why you feel the way you feel. So you know that you're not alone with it, because my God. Don't I feel it, don't it? It's like the most lonely thing in the world, I swear. Infertility is just horrible. You just feel so alone. Like, you just have nobody to turn to, and I think, oh, I don't know. Another one is impatient, and I think I really agree with that. Like, I think especially in the early stages, I say early stages, maybe after the first year, I became really impatient. I'm impatient anyway, and I think you kind of, like, every month you're like, right, hurry up, when am I ovulating? Okay, right, I've ovulated. And then that 2-week wait is just horrific. Whether you're going through IVF or you're trying naturally, those 2 weeks before you can test, they're awful. And you become like the most impatient person ever. Like, you just wish your life away. And I do feel like that's what I do a lot of the time now. Like, I feel like I just sit here and wish my life away. Like, right, hurry up, I want to start the IVF, and then I want the child to be here. Like, all these feelings are just, you don't want to wait for anything, because you've waited so long as it is. So any further wait is just problematic. You go to a doctor's surgery, right, we'll give you a scan, but it'll be in 3 weeks. And you're like, 3 weeks? You'd be lucky to get a scan in 3 weeks now. But, you know, you end up having to wait for everything, and everything is a wait. Just getting pregnant, you've got to wait. Getting pregnant, it's like you've waited long enough. What more do they want you to wait for? But I do think I have become more patient than I was before, because I've had to wait for so long for this, that in my head I try and think, right, okay, patience is key, because it will be worth it in the end. And as I've said before, you know, a video on the lessons I've learned, and I think you do learn so much in this situation. And for me, I think, I don't know, you just feel so impatient all the time, but I think I'm learning to deal with that. But God, that it's so true, isn't it? Like, everything with fertility is a waiting game. Everything. There is nothing that isn't a waiting game. Like, even when you start IVF, you're waiting. You're all ready and you're all systems going. You're waiting for a bloody period. And that's just, pardon the pun. But that's it, isn't it? It's just constantly waiting. You do a pregnancy test and you've got to sit and wait for it to appear. It won't just tell you. Everything. So no, impatient. God, everyone must feel it. If you aren't patient throughout this, please let me know how, because my God, it's taught me to be more patient, but not with fertility. That, hurry up, happen now. One that also really quite struck a chord with me was embarrassment, and I think I'm going to cover kind of two with one here now. You've got embarrassment and not feeling like a woman, like you feel less womanly, and I'm going to do these both together. It is embarrassing. It shouldn't be embarrassing, but it is. And you do feel like that. Like, when I say it is, I don't mean I think it's embarrassing. I don't think that we should be embarrassed, because I don't. But you do feel that way. And you feel that way because, like I say, your body isn't doing what it should be doing. And as a result, you feel less womanly. I did a video the other week about talking about it, and this is one of the reasons that I said you should, because so many people go through this, and therefore why are we embarrassed about it? It's happened. For whatever reason you're not, it's natural. You haven't done anything to cause this. But it does. It feels embarrassing because your body doesn't work, and I get that. But the feeling less womanly, like you do, like I look at myself in the mirror sometimes and I just feel like there's something missing. Like I'll look in the mirror and I will be very aware of the fact that my reproductive system is unable, if you like, and that's horrible because I look at myself and I think, I don't know, I think as you get older, I think to me, pregnancy is beautiful, and this whole being a mother, there's something really womanly about somebody who is a mother, and I feel like I completely lack that. And you kind of look in the mirror, and like I say, you're looking in that mirror and you're thinking, why me? Like, why is this happening to me? What did I do? Am I not womanly enough? Am I, you know, a woman is supposed to be a mother, you know. You can say that I'm stereotyping as much as you want, but that realistically, like the human body, that is what a woman does that a man doesn't do, and that is carry a child, give birth to a child. And I can't even get pregnant, let alone carry the child, give birth to the child. And I feel like everything, it feels like that's taken away from you. It feels like your right has gone. You just feel like, I can't even put it into words. I'm really struggling with this one, like verbalising it. Infertility makes you feel less of a woman because you almost like, your body can't do these things, and you don't get the big breasts full of milk and the baby in the belly, and you know, infertility, it massively affects your sex life. Like, your sex life isn't fun anymore. It's a chore because you are making a baby, and that is all you were doing because you become obsessed with it. So you don't feel sexy anymore. Like, all the effort kind of goes out of it, and everything that a woman should be, if you like, the textbook woman, you don't feel like you are. And I didn't feel pretty. I didn't feel sexy. I didn't feel like I was appealing to my husband in any way, shape or form. And I think it's not even just about the exterior, it's the interior. Like, I just didn't feel like I was worthy of that woman status because I couldn't or can't have that child naturally. Like, I don't feel like a woman. I feel like some kind of animal in a test laboratory kind of thing. Like, I need somebody else to get me pregnant, and it's just not, you know, as women, we spend our lives comparing ourselves to other people all the time. You look at somebody and you think, I wish my waist was that small, I wish my bum was that big, I wish my legs were that toned, I wish my hair was that long, I wish my lips were that full, I wish my nose was a bit smaller, I wish my cheekbones were a bit more defined, I wish I had a nicer jawline, you know. I wish my hair was that colour, I wish I didn't get as many spots, I wish my boobs looked like that, I wish I had smaller nipples, I wish my belly was flatter, I wish I didn't have any cellulite. We pull ourselves apart. We really do. We look in the mirror and we are so horrible about ourselves. We do not love ourselves at all. And so now you add not being able to get pregnant either, and you're comparing yourselves to all these other women who can. And that makes you feel horrible. But you are just as womanly as everyone else. You're stronger. I said this in an Instagram post the other day. You've graduated from woman and you are full on warrior. But that's the biggest feeling. And when I let you know how to cope with that, when I know, I'll tell you. Because that's a feeling I can't get rid of. But we are. we're all top women. We're strong, really strong. Like, if you think everybody else gets their kids just by having a bit of sex, look how much we've got to go through to get there. I think that makes us queens, if I'm honest. Absolute queens. Queens, warriors, gladiators, the full shebang. We are it. Definitely. Who wants to be a woman when you can be a warrior, eh? I'm just joking, I'd rather get pregnant naturally any day of the week. But still, let me fix my crown. I want to be a queen. Loneliness is a big one. Like, I think, so when I first found out, I didn't know where to turn. And I think that's like that with everybody. Like, I think you kind of, you don't know who to speak to. A lot of places, I know in America they have support groups left, right and centre, but we don't really have that here. And I think that's, again, why I went so public with it, because I think you don't know who to talk to. Infertility is such a lonely place. But you just need to reach out and watch my talking about fertility vlog. And I'll tell you all about why you should talk about it, but it really does. It is so lonely. Like, I think you just feel so on your own. And you almost feel like everybody's just getting pregnant. And then comes the jealousy. And it's not like you wouldn't wish any harm on that person. And I always try to think if you're really happy for them, but you're sad for you. And I think at first it's really hard to be happy for them, because you just think, especially when they're in an accident, didn't mean to get pregnant, they were on the contraception, and then you just feel really bitter. And again, it's a catch-22. You're going round and round and round in circles. But it's all just such a, you just feel so negative, like everything is just consuming. And that's what I mean. There's a thin line between feeling these and it turning you into a complete monster. So it's really not great. It's really quite shit. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I am really sorry if I've depressed you. But like I say, this was more about the support and just making you understand that these feelings aren't just you. They're not just unique to you. They are things that everybody in this situation feels, whether you're 6 months or 6 years into your journey. So I am going to do a video on coping with the jealousy, kind of dealing with that, and then just coping with everything. So as I said, I've got 18 weeks to fill. If you have any techniques of coping that you kind of you want me to discuss, or things that you think work for you, then do just let me know, and we can have a look into that. And there's any kind of issues that you want to cover, anything that you think is really key that you want me to talk about, then do just let me know. Send me a message on Instagram or drop me a comment down below, whatever. I do want to cover as much as possible. But I do really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much. Make sure that you're keeping up to date on Instagram and that you are subscribing to my YouTube. So my Instagram is Amber in a Teacup. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share, do as you will. But yeah, please make sure that you turn your notifications on. Every Saturday we will be here with another fertility episode. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you next week. Ciao, ciao.